Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to talk about balance transfers, so if you are considering a balance transfer or do not know what those are, then keep on watching. First of all, I want to say a quick and huge thank you to everybody for their support on my last video about wanting to become a debt or financial coach. I have had quite a few people apply and I have reached out to the 4 people that I am going to be working with from now through December. So I have chosen my clients for now, but if you are still interested, then please go to that video and click the link in the description. You can still apply and it may be possible that I could still work with you in the near future. But let's get right into this video. We're going to be talking about balance transfers, and this is something that I have done and something that I think a lot of people don't know about. So first of all, what is a balance transfer? Basically, all it is you're taking a balance from one account and putting it onto another account. Typically, it is a credit card. So depending on how much credit you have available to you, you can either transfer your full loan amount or a partial amount of your loan, and you typically have to pay a balance transfer fee, which is between around 2%, usually 3% to 5%. And then you would also typically be in a promotional window. So oftentimes you will be in a promo where you're not paying interest at all on that balance transfer for a year or 15 months or 18 months. It just depends on the card. I did want to share my experience with doing a balance transfer because I did this fairly recently. Back in June 2019, I decided to do a balance transfer of about $6,000 of my student loans to 2 separate credit cards. Now, these were cards that I already had. However, both of them were offering promos. They both were offering a promotional period of 0% APR for 1 year, and that was for a balance transfer. And the reason that they were probably doing this was because at the time I was completely credit card debt free, and I had been credit card debt free for a couple of months. So of course they're going to keep trying to get you to go into credit card debt. And so I did do that $6,000 transfer. I believe I did about $2,000 on one card and $4,000 something on the other card, both of which had a 3% fee. So I paid about $180 in fees, and this was a somewhat high of an interest rate before. I believe the loan that I was transferring was above 5%. I honestly can't remember. I could go back and look, but for the purpose of this video, I believe it was about 5% or maybe close to 6%. And so in the long run, if I were able to pay this off in that year of a promotional period, then it would save me money on interest, even considering the balance transfer fee. At the time of me doing this balance transfer, I thought it would be easy peasy. I was thinking to myself that $6,000 in a year is nothing. I'll absolutely be able to pay that off in a year and I'll be good to go. However, what happened were a series of unfortunate events or emergencies, I guess you could say, toward the end of 2019, and it was becoming a lot more difficult and more stressful to pay that off. And I was getting really worried by the time December rolled around, and I really didn't think I would be able to pay it off. In December is when I started this channel, and if you were watching me then you know that I had that credit card debt because it was just from a balance transfer. So I did still have that debt in the beginning of 2020, and fortunately everything ended up working out and I was able to pay everything off by June 2020. And I did not have to pay any interest on that. I just had the balance transfer fee, which I already paid for, and I was good. In the end, it worked out, but for my situation, I don't think I would have done that looking back. It did add a lot more stress to me financially just because I now put a timeline on this debt, and that wouldn't have been the case if I didn't do the balance transfer because it was student loan debt. And I will talk about the things that you can expect when you do a balance transfer, but a lot of it was similar to what I went through. To do a balance transfer, you're typically either putting it on a new card, so you need to apply for a new credit card that allows for you to do balance transfers. Most of them do allow that, but some of them don't offer as good promotions as other cards. You can also find cards that have a 0% fee, but of course, always make sure you read the fine print because there may be other charges in there. The other option is what I did, in which I already had the credit cards and they were offering this promotion, and so I went ahead and did that. So I did not have to take out new credit cards. I just went ahead and put in the information, and I was able to get that promo and transfer my balance from my student loans over to those 2 credit cards. And so that reduced my student loan balance and increased my credit card debt, of course. Both of these situations are going to affect your credit score, and pretty significantly. So the first one is if you take out a new card. So that is a hit right there. If you decide to open up a new credit card, they're going to do a hard pull of your credit, and that will open up your credit. It will also decrease the history, your credit history. So again, it will take a small hit to your credit. And the third thing is you are putting a large balance onto a credit card, and that is where the biggest hit is going to come. So by doing a balance transfer, you are increasing your credit utilization rate, and that is one of the largest impacts on credit score. One positive from opening a new card is that you may increase your total credit limit and then possibly lower your credit utilization. This may not be immediate, but within a few months, you could see a positive effect from that. And then if you're going to do a balance transfer like I did, where you just put it onto a credit card that you already have open, then just keep in mind that you will again be increasing your credit card utilization rate, and your credit score will drop pretty significantly. I know for me, because I went from 0% to, I can't even remember what it was, but I believe it was over 20%. And so it knocked it down quite a few points. So this is something that you should consider and avoid if you are trying to get a new car loan or get a home or anything that requires your credit. I highly suggest you do not do a balance transfer, because it is going to affect your score. Also remember that if you have a balance on one account, you may not be able to transfer that full balance onto a balance transfer card, because it just depends on how much credit you have available. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It may just be a partial transfer, which is okay. But with that being said, you may have 2 payments end up being due. So for example, because I transferred my student loans over to my credit card, this did push back my due date for my student loans. However, within a few months, I would have had to pay my student loan debt as well as that credit card balance. So now you are creating more minimum payments for yourself. So that's another thing to keep in mind, because you are probably going to increase the total minimum payments per month by doing a balance transfer, at least after a few months of doing it. Like I said, for myself, there was this huge pressure on me to pay this off within the time limit. And of course, after that, it's not like I would go to prison or something. It's just that I would end up losing that promotion and have to pay an absurd amount of interest on the remaining loan. And I would end up losing quite a bit of money if I had to do that. So that's what would happen. And so when you're doing this balance transfer, it can be quite stressful. If it gets to that point where you start to, if you're in my situation where multiple emergencies come up and you had to pay for other things, and even though you thought it would be easy to pay off, it ended up not being as easy to pay off. So it can get stressful, and that's one major con to doing a balance transfer. The other thing is that credit card debt is not as easily forgivable. So for example, if you were to transfer your student loans over to your credit card debt sometime earlier this year, you wouldn't have been able to pause those payments and have 0 interest rate like we do now because of the pandemic. So you wouldn't be able to have that break if you happen to transfer your student loans. But same goes for other types of loans. So for example, if you were to transfer part of your car loan over to a credit card, and if you absolutely needed to, in a worst case scenario, you could sell that car or, give it to somebody else or something like that to get help with the payments. Versus credit card debt, you wouldn't be able to sell your credit card and get money back for that. So that is something to consider when you're doing a balance transfer, because there is an opportunity cost with that. Like I said, at the end of the day, my balance transfer worked out, but I think there are a few key things to pay attention to and to stick to if you do want to do a balance transfer. And if you do these few things, then I think a balance transfer will be okay for you. So the first thing is to have a solid emergency fund. So I would suggest having several $1,000s in an emergency fund, depending on how much you transfer, but just in general, of course. But if you do happen to experience an emergency or any sort of setback, you will have that money there, and then you won't have to stress about the money that is charged on the balance transfer card. And so that's a good step to start with, is to make sure you have some money saved. The second thing is that you are likely to pay this off within the promotional period. You have confidence that you will be able to pay it off in the year or 18 months or whatever is offered, because otherwise you will go from that 0% interest rate to probably above 18%, usually much higher than that, above 24%, and none of it will be worth it. You will end up paying more money in interest because of that. So be sure you're confident that you can pay it off within that time period. The third thing is to make sure that the interest you will save by doing that balance transfer is greater than the balance transfer fee. So this just takes a little bit of calculation, and you should be able to figure that out. Like I said, there are cards that offer a 0% transfer fee. Just really pay attention to what you are signing to though. You may be able to find one that has a lower transfer fee as well, but most of the time there is a fee associated with it. So just make sure that you will save enough money in interest to make up for that. And the fourth thing is to just make sure that you're able to even do that balance transfer. So just make sure that you're able to take this one loan and transfer it to another lender, because there sometimes are rules with certain companies. Typically, the main thing is that you're not able to do a balance transfer between the same company. So for example, if you have a Capital One credit card, then you wouldn't be able to do a balance transfer with another Capital One credit card, and those are usually laid out pretty straightforward on their websites, but just pay attention to what you can and cannot transfer. So usually you can do student loans, you can do credit card balances to a different credit card company, you can do car loans, and probably any other loan for the most part. If you don't want to do a balance transfer, or you feel like you don't qualify for those few things that I just listed, then you do have other options. So one of the main things is you could do a refinance. This is especially good for cars, because typically if you've been working on your credit and paying down debt and things like that, you should be able to refinance to a lower interest rate and save money that way. And that way you still have that loan with the car, and if absolutely necessary, you could sell it if you needed to, or pause payments if it's a student loan, or choose a different financial plan if it's a student loan, a different payback plan. So that is something to consider. Again, your credit would be hit with doing a refinance, and you do have to have a higher credit score to benefit from that or even be able to do it, but it may be a better option than the balance transfer because it's less risky. The second option is to take out a personal loan. Now, this is not something that I have ever done, to be honest, and so I do not know too much about it, so you would want to do more research, of course, for any of this really. But with a personal loan, you may be able to get a lower interest rate than what you're paying for something, and it may be worth it. Just don't take out more than necessary. You may also be able to find a personal loan with a promotional offer of its own, and you could probably save significant money. So basically with that personal loan, you would pay for that high interest loan and save money in the long run. Overall, I personally would probably not do a balance transfer again, just because I don't see it as necessary, and also I did not appreciate the additional stress that I experienced during that time. Luckily, it all worked out, so I am super grateful for that, but I do think it's okay to do a balance transfer if you fit those 4 things that I listed. Depending on your interest rate, you have the ability to save hundreds or possibly even thousands of dollars by doing a balance transfer, but it's definitely something to research more and to think about, weigh out the pros and cons, and just get really clear on where you stand financially. That's all I have in regards to balance transfers. Please comment down below if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions. And like I said, if you're interested in debt coaching or finance coaching, please check out my last video and fill out the application there, or feel free to email me with any questions. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.